Good morning, everyone. So today we'll start with the session of Indian Express. Though there are a lot many news, but the problem with these news are largely these news are detail oriented. Okay, and in such case, we will try to analyze it in a bit short. But the important news today is Bilkis Bano case, and apart from that, I identified four newses, and the fourth one is based on data. But you see that probably if we turn to page 1, Bilkis Bano, we will take subsequently different laws and referent to national unity. So this is the news argument which was made by Tushar Mehta in Supreme Court, where he said that implementation of UCCC is needed and required. But again, as it is developing news, so probably it will be taken later. But the important part in this news is that different laws for different communities can create problems, and that was highlighted by that is the stand of the union government in the Supreme Court. So based on that, some presumptions of UCC can be brought, or Uniform Civil Code can be brought, can be taken at a later point. But going back way back into the history of UCC, you see that it was first advocated by All India Women Development Association way back in 1926, when say that different cultural laws and different inheritance law in the different countries, in the different communities can create problem for the national unity. So this was the first question. Probably if it is asked that what is the role of women movement in the national discourse or national developmental discourse, then you can quote this example. Moreover, there is this issue of that when All India Muslim Personal Law Board was enacted. Before that, there were so many communities who were practicing different kind of practices, even in Muslim relation. So after the implementation of All India Muslim Personal Law, there was a homogenization even in the Muslim communities. So in the larger context, ultimately it tantamounts to that what is the role of unity and diversity in the whole context, and this is one of the important thing indirectly on which question can be asked in the essay paper or in the GS paper 1, which is the frequent topic of unity and diversity. So you see that in order to analyze that, we have to understand that how much of unity and how much of diversity is needed. For example, if we say that diversity is the sole point, then what is the limit of the diversity? If diversity was so good, then what was the purpose of bringing GST and such other bill? Isn't it? Say multiple taxes are good, take care. So we see that it is creating a kind of cascading impact on the different region, and the prices go up, and there is no homogeneous environment for the FDI. So in the world we are living in a kind of economic integration, very much economic integration is there. So does diversity serves any purpose, or it creates and it perpetuates in the sense of identity, which can be detrimental for the national unity? So based on this, the discourse of UCC is happening, because as such it is only the standpoint of the government. So rather the impact of unity and diversity is more important. Now the other news, anger and grief in Gambia over child death. See, again, it is a narrative based on the parents in Gambia. So not much can be withdrawn, but yes, it is important from the ethical perspective. Similarly, 2 migrants worker killed, again internal law and security problems. So not that much is there which can be confided or which can be determined from the news. Further, again there is this point of governor who is in conflict with that Punjab governor asked Man to remove PAC. So again there is a role of the governor, and we will discuss something about the governor in the coming article, because the governor is the topic. Yes. Further, this is 7 days as helicopter ferrying Kedarnath pilgrimage crashes. So this is one of the important news, but you see that much is not covered. It is just talking about a disaster, which has happened in during the Kedarnath pilgrimage. But the important part that is can be inferred from this news is that, you know, whatever is there happening, probably even in the Bombay High where a helicopter crashed, so and even in Uttarakhand where there is a helicopter crash, so there was only one thing which was common among these helicopter crash, is that the specialization of that particular pilot on that particular machine was not there. This is one of the important point. So who is the authority that controls allocation of helicopter or such other commercial vehicle? It is happening quite frequently with the helicopters. Even in the Bombay High case, the pilot who was a trained pilot shifted to some other machine, and in this case he was a military pilot and he was trained well in the helicopter piloting, but he was the pilot based on Bombay High and he switched to the location of Uttarakhand hilly terrain. So there is the problem that what is the regulating mechanism for helicopter piloting? For all we know that it is generally directed by Director General Civil Aviation. So that is the part, but the regulation will come later and it will be discussed subsequently. Now, further, there is this news, and which is very relevant from the point of view of ethics and paper 1. On the open editorial page, you will see Maharaja reckoning. See, not much was there in the news, so I'm just, you know, discussing the news. Maharaja reckoning, Sourav Ganguly innings in BCCI. This is the news. Now he is highlighting upon the paradox that definitely Sourav Ganguly is a cult of a personality in the Bengal, if it is considered, and he certainly has good role to play with the overall cricketing gestures or the circumstances in India. But here in the BCCI there was a conflict of interest whenever he said about that I am not part of the IPL or advertisement, so there was certainly conflict of interest everywhere. But the particular Sandeep Dwivedi highlights upon the paradox of that once we make them God, and it is not an isolated case with Sourav Ganguly, Rahul Dravid, Sachin Tendulkar, VVS Lakshman are somehow everyone is going through the this cult personality, cult kind of thing where we make them God, and when they leave their position we expect them to behave like human or lesser mortals. So this is throwing a situation where in India for that matter anywhere, there is this cult of personality and celebrity worship culture. We have seen that in the case of Sushant Singh Rajput. So what is the reason for celebrity culture? That is the important thing that you can infer from this article along with the conflict of interest as we know it. So the reason for celebrity culture, you can comment that what is the region for celebrity culture across India, but largely it pertains to that we are a country who is hungry for greatness, isn't it? Middle class aspiration is there. We are an aspirational country, and in this country if someone jumps the ship and jumps to a certain position, we try to analyze him and we try to see him as a god. And it is happening with anywhere. It is happening with either the political party or with the sports figures, anyone. And this, appeasement kind of thing, probably we trying to appease in every way possible, deteriorates the situation, and ultimately it results in some kind of corruption. That can be moral corruption as well, that can be the physical or probably the monetary corruption as well. So the culture of celebrity worship is somehow detrimental to any of the institutions, and this was this article tried to highlight, that the celebrity culture, worship culture, and thinking oneself of greater than law, because he said that every time he made the argument, like I have played 424 international one day international. So the celebrity culture is eroding the overall principles and the premise of the institutions. And what is happening across the nation as of now, where we are seeing that what is going on with the different institutions. So somehow it it shows that there is an erosion of overall institution framework where the personality cult is highlighted. And this is a very interesting topic in the sociology also, where we say that charismatic authorities is there. And we know about charismatic authority, that the authority who projects itself in some kind of crisis, and based on that crisis, he resolves the situations or try to resolve the situation. For example, when Anna Hazare movement was there, India was definitely facing the problem of corruption. So Anna Hazare started as a celebrity or not charismatic authority who can control the corruption. Same Gandhi, he was also an charismatic authority. Nehru, he was also an charismatic authority. But the problem with the charismatic authority in any of the possible way, that if it is regularized and if it is routinized, then there can be stability, there can be legality in this. But if somebody transfers their power from one charismatic authority to other charismatic authority, so subsequently maybe at a later phase of time, okay, there can be erosion and there can be questioning of the authority overall. For example, I believe that everybody knows Rahul Gandhi. So he can be seen as an example of the failure of the charisma, where he was not ready to take up the political role or whatever it is, and this is the problem. So even there is this very interesting article about Steve Jobs, that he was an charismatic authority, and the subsequent transfer of the Steve Jobs to other CEOs of the Apple and the directors of the Apple has not translated well. So for example, there is this news today that iPhone has withdrawn the iPhone 14 Plus. So everybody is questioning that what kind of rationalization or what kind of transfer is this such authority, that Steve Jobs was a biggest name in this case. And along with that, there is other news, which is that the first model of iPhone was sold for nearly $3 lakh. So you see that the celebrity worship culture and the charismatic authorities overall impact on the social dimensions. So this is largely the news, and though there is this article, the New Kheda, where the flogging of the young men was common. So largely it is written with a political overtone, where you see that flogging of the Muslim youth during the Garba festival was decried, but hardly you can withdraw anything from this. And as far as the editorial goes, largely we will discuss that. Now coming back to the first news, which is Bilkis Bano case. A bit of background, that Bilkis Bano was raped in the aftermath of Godhra conflict and the subsequent riot that took place in Gujarat. So the punishment was there. Bombay High Court, first the case was transferred from Gujarat to Bombay High Court, and Bombay High Court punished those criminals. In fact, initially the state organization said that you cannot identify the victims. We cannot identify the culprits. So subsequently the case was transferred to CBI and it was further transferred to Bombay High Court. You see that political dispensation during that course was different. Today we live in the era, or regime rather, we can say regime of Narendra Modi, where that was the regime of Manmohan Singh and era of Congress UPA government. So the issue arose because on the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav on 15th of August this year, 7 of the criminals were granted remission from the state government, and even central government acceded to it. So the issue is that what is the problem? What is remission? Because this article also highlights in a table, if you will see, that there are 3 things which is mentioned here: parole days, furlough days, and total leave days. So our interest in this article is what is parole, what is furlough, what is remission, what is the governor and the president power of pardon. That is the thing which is very important from the perspective of not only prelims but also means, because the fine line of distinction is there. Now, coming back to our topic, which is parole. So, parole is the conditional release of prisoner on certain conditions and will have a regular report to authorities, for a set period of time. This is parole, set period of time. See, it is not that you are completely out of the jail. And if you will see in this article, then we will see that 950 days of the parole, which is largely 3 years, and they were convicted in 2008. So, this part, that conditional release of prisoner, and it is only generally for 1 month. Okay, the objective behind granting parole is to grant someone relief to prisoner in certain exigencies. What can be these exigencies? This is parole. Okay, we will subsequently come to this. Now, what is furlough? It is granting of leave of absence. It is granting of leave of absence to a condition from a prisoner for a specific period of time. It is granted after stipulated number of years of the prisoner without a reason. And both these are driven by Prisoner Act 1894 and Section 430 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. So you see that figuratively there is nothing in constitutions which highlight that what is parole and what is furlough, and it is basically driven from both these two articles. Now, further, there is also thing, the president and the governor of the states have also been given the right to remit sentence of any person convicted of any offence under Article 72 and Article 161 of the constitutions. What is remittance? That will be the third part. That we know about parole, we know about furlough, and what is remittance? So this is the third part. So you see that remission, it stands for the reduction of the period of a sentence without changing its nature. मतलब ये है भाई कि किसी को अगर 4 साल का रिग्रेस इम्प्रिजनमेंट मिला है तो it will be converted into 2 years of rigorous imprisonment, not 2 years of simple punishment or simple imprisonment. Okay. Now, respite, it denotes awarding a lesser sentence in place of one originally awarded due to some special fact such as physical disability of a convict or the pregnancy of woman offender. Clear? Now, that part, 2 years of rigorous imprisonment can be converted into 1 year of simple imprisonment or 2 years of simple imprisonment. And probably if you are aware, then there is this very famous case, and probably you have seen that quite a few times. You know, you must be aware with the movie Border, and there was a fire that took place in Upahar cinema in Delhi way back in 1996. So in the argument, the accused, which was the owner of the Upahar cinema, pleaded that due to their age, 75 years, which was at the time of awardment of the sentence, that they should be respite in the sentence. So he was given a 5 year of a simple imprisonment. Okay, when you know that is the case. So reprieve, it implies a stay of execution of sentence, specially of a death, for a temporary period. It is purpose to enable the convict to have time to seek pardon or commutation for the precedent, as well as filing of the SLPs and such other issues. So respite is what? If somebody is awarded a death sentence and he appealed to the precedent, then in that case he can be given the respite. So this is the largely terms. You have to remember the terms: parole, furlough, remission, respite and reprieve. Now, there are two types of paroles: custodial and regular parole. So there are other issues which will, to whom it can be granted. Grounds for granting of the furlough, it is See, custodial furlough is granted when there are some special cases. Okay, and regular furlough can be granted for a maximum period of 1 month. Suppose somebody's family member died and he has to attend the funeral. So in case a custodial parole can be granted. समझ आया? You must have seen that in some of the movies, some person who is in the jail, or probably even in the newspaper, when some of the person criminal who has done some criminal offense or brought to the funeral pyres of some, so they are still in the chains and such other issues. So probably custodial means for a shorter period of time, and regular it can be a maximum of 1 month. Now, to whom it can be granted? To anybody who is suffering, who is undergoing prison for longer term, short term, and it can be granted for the, see, this is the problem, because even in the case of this Bilkis Bano case, parole was granted frequently, where the furlough provision is reserved for that. So it is granted irrespective of any that it can, see, what is the condition? Short term. For any short term period, parole can be granted, and it can be granted from from hours to a maximum of 1 month. What about the furlough? Furlough can be granted who is awarded bigger sentences, and it can be specific numbers of time, and it can be granted irrespective of any reason, merely with the view to enable the prisoner to have family association, family social ties, and avoid the ill effects of a continuous prison life. नहीं समझे? हाँ. So avoid the ill effect of the continuous prison life. And I believe that this is a very good movie, and I hope that most of you have seen that movie, Shawshank Redemption. Basically, that movie shows the life in the jail. So there is this one character in the movie who was awarded a life sentence of 45 years. Not life sentence. In the US, life sentence is different from that of India. So, he served 45 years of his life sentence. 45 years without any furlough, without any parole. Okay, so, but his behavior was good. Now, after 45 years, he was given, because of his good behavior, he was released from the jail. Now, there is this issue that he says that when he attends some kind of community shops and work as a, bar clerk, that counter clerk on some supermarkets. So he said that for 45 years of my life, I have been taking the orders. Even if I have to go for natural call, then there was an order. Okay. So now they are saying me that you don't have to ask me that you want to attend the natural call or not. So you see that 45 years he has been institutionalized in the jail, meaning that for everything he has to take the orders. He had the rules of the jails were completely inculcated in him. So if 45 years is a very long time, so this is what? Continuous prison life. So continuous prison life has a very detrimental impact on any individual who is going through it. So for this purpose, furlough is given so that he can have a social bond, enabling the association and the family jails. Further, there is a concept of open jail. I believe that most of you are aware with the case of open jail. What is the meaning of open jail? And it has been done in some of the states in India. You see that crimes, most of the crimes, in fact 80% of the crimes are committed on the basis of, just impulsively crime of passion and such other. They are committed impulsively when you are not under your control. And after that, somebody regrets us for their life. So this is where the concept of open jail concept for petty crimes, for normal crimes, they can live with their family, they can work towards the welfare or the society, or the given the mandate, like you have to work with the bamboos and such other issues, such other things. So there's work also, they can live with their family also. So they also demand to convert some of the criminals, basically crimes, who behave impulsively, to open jail also. So this was about the furlough part. Now, what is difference between furlough and parole? Parole is a suspension. Furlough is a leave granted. Matlab, very clear. See, if parole is given, it is not calculated in the overall jail term. Because it can be given from 1 month to 30 days. If furlough is granted, then it can be calculated into the overall jail sentence. And this was laid by a judgment of the Supreme Court in 2021 alone. Now, rights. Parole is not right of the prisoner and is given on a specific ground. It can be rejected too. Sometimes even if all the grounds are satisfied or met, the competent authority cannot grant a prisoner parole, as leaving him or her in the society would be against the interest of the society. Furlough is the right of a prisoner and is granted to him or her periodically. Sometimes it is even granted without any reasons, on the sole ground for him maintaining the social contacts with the family. Now, the natural question which arises in your mind is that probably if furlough is granted and somebody who is involved in the heinous crime, okay, so for example, because even most of the terrorists undergoes life imprisonment, or the child rapist, they generally go under the life imprisonment. So can parole be granted to them? Because they are always at the, the tendency or potential to hurt the society. Nahi samjhe? See, the issue is, when we talk about justice, what is justice? What is the meaning of justice? You can comment, you can have different interpretation, but probably when we say justice, then the next thing that comes to our mind is revenge. What is revenge? Say probably if somebody killed someone, then but justice can also be solved. Justice is in another way, justice is served, but such type of justice is called frontier justice. Frontier justice. Now, revenge is something which make an individual happy. Justice is something which creates harmony in the society, and it is very important to understand. It creates harmony in the society. Revenge is a very personal issue. It makes some individual happy, and justice is for the collective good of the society. Society. So you see that when a crime is committed, it is committed against the society, and that's why there is sentence. And when somebody takes the revenge, he takes it in individual capacity, which can have a inflationary effect on the overall situation. अगर तुमने मेरे घर वालों को मार दिया तो मैं तुम्हारे घर वालों को मारूंगा, है ना, फिर उसके घर वालों को मारूंगा, फिर ये लगातार चेंज चलता रहेगा. So this is the vicious cycle. So this was about. Now, on what grounds parole can be granted? Parole is based on reasons or certain conditions. Furlough is granted without any reasons. The reason can be death in the family, accident in the family, somebody is ill in the family, marriages in the family. You see that we talked about exigencies. Exigencies means a situation arose in which certain things can be witnessed, or his presence is necessary. In this case, parole can be granted. Now, furlough is granted without any reason, mainly with the idea of giving the convict a break from the regular prison life. So we have explained that why break is needed. Further, limitation. There is no limitation on the number of times a convict can get parole. However, there is a limitation exists in the case of Furlough, and this is based on the procedures laid out in the rule of the each states. Further, authority. Who is the authority? The divisional commissioner is the parole granting authority, and the Furlough is granted by DIG of prisons. Does the sentence get suspended or reduced? The days of leaves while being on parole are not included in the sentence period. However, in the case of Furlough, the sentence of the convict goes along with the Furlough period. ये part clear हुआ? That if suppose a Furlough was granted for 6 months or maybe 3 months, so in the overall term it will be calculated. Okay, now, so that again brings us to the point that what is the pardoning power of President. The President cannot exercise his power of pardon independently of the government. In several cases, the Supreme Court has ruled that the President has to act on the advice of Council of Ministers while deciding the mercy pleas. This includes Maru Ram versus Union of India case 90 and Dhananjay Chatterjee, the state, both were the convicts of the capital punishment. Procedures: Rashtrapati Bhavan forwards the mercy plea to the Home Ministry seeking the cabinet advice. The ministry in terms forwards to the concerned state power. Based on the reply, it formulates its advice on behalf of the Council of Ministers. Reconsideration: if it is rejected by the Union Government of India, its President is bound by the Cabinet Advice, Article 74, empower him to return it for the reconsideration once. If the Council of Ministers decides against any changes, the President has no option but to accept it. And the same goes with the Governor, but his power is very limited as he cannot grant the remission or the pardon in case of court martial and in the case of death sentences. Okay, so this was about the, and there's this question, 4 options are given, you just have to tell that which options is right or wrong. I haven't given you option, but maybe more than one option can be wrong. You can take the time while reading the question and just tell me that which option is wrong or right. The President has the power to grant pardon where the punishment or sentence is by the court martial. Second, the Governor can grant pardon all in the case where the sentence is the sentence of death. So this is, yes, I will be waiting for the comment. Now, third, the court power of judicial review is very limited in relation to the decisions of the President on the mercy petition. Rules of the procedures has to be seen. The power to grant the pardon by the President is the power that sovereign never exercises against his judicial mandate. Okay, so this is also wrong option. He has to consider his.
Life imprisonment also martial law and death sentence. Life imprisonment.
Now, Governor dismissing State Minister. Why in the news? Because Kerala governor said that he will be dismissing a State Minister, and there was an allegation and counter allegation that he was not aware with the overall reality, and it just threw some kind of situation. So what is the role of the governor? Even we in say that Article 153 says that there shall be a governor for each state. One person can be appointed by the governor for 2 or more states. A governor is appointed by the President and is nominee of the central government. It states that the government has dual role. He is the constitutional head of the state bounded by the advice of the Council of Ministers. So you see, the pleasure is not his. The pleasure is the time till the CM is enjoying the majority. If the CM is enjoying the majority, then there is no provision whatsoever under which a Council of Ministers or a particular minister can be forced to resign or suspended by the governor. The first point is finished. So he just crossed his mandate. He functions as a vital link between the union government and the central government. These are the powers of the government, reprieve and such other issues. Largely, but the issue, if we see, is that that something is going wrong with the overall status of the government. Initially, what was the purpose of the government? Because the nation was not that strong. So the purpose of the governor, and in fact there was this topic of the debate even in the Constitutional Assembly too, that the purpose was to give the report to the central government so that no secessionist tendencies can be found anywhere or in any of the states. But over the time, as the nation has stabilized, the role of the government is always questioned. So basically, the moment we say he is a nominee of the central government, so sometimes even we are saying that he is an agent of the central government. And agent in this particular case is a negative connotation, is of negative connotation. Okay, so various committee and commission recommended that there should be, like for example, Sarkari committee recommended that while appointing the governor, vice president, the view of the vice president and that of the Lok Sabha speaker should be and must be taken into the account. This was one of the recommendations. For the Punji Commission also highlighted this. So this was about the governors. Now bridge on river Ganga linking the riverine areas of Maithani and Sambo in the Begusarai would also connect the NS31. Why? Because you see that here what we are talking about is that there will be a bridge on Ganga river. And the purpose is to resolve or to react fast in the case of disaster, because Barauni is a largely industrial town. Further, this bridge will reduce the travelling time between two different places by nearly 3 hours and 30 minutes. Right now, it takes generally around 4 hours to reach from one place to other place, and this will reduce the time to maximum of 30 minutes. That is connecting the agricultural area from the industrial area of one. Two, that we have discussed there is no poor people, only poor places. So such kind of infrastructural support will help in augmenting the resource. So here it can be used, see, to show that no, there is no conflict between environment and development, because this developmental act is largely because of the reacting in the environmentally disaster or environmental disaster scenario. Now, tipping point. This is another article which is on the explained pages. Now, what he is saying that initially it was perceived that after reaching the rise of 1.5 degree temperature, climate change scenario cannot be reversed. So now he says that across the time there has been studies which says that even at the current temperature, which is 1.1, there can be no reversal. And say that at 1.1 we reach certain tipping points. And what is tipping point in this case? For example, he says that when ice is melt at some particular location, and at higher altitude ice is there. So at some particular location ice is melting. So the erosion due to the warm air can be created further, and which can aggravate the situation. Similarly, in the Amazon rainforest, when there is a deforestation, so it will again decrease the capacity of the rain or the overall procedures of the rain. I am not going into the detail of that, but overall that how rain can be, the mechanism of the rain. So this is say that if we have to stop, then we have to stop it now, because after reaching 1.1, the problem can be aggravated further. So whatever we are doing, we have to do it with the institutional authority and in the letter and the spirit. So the same thing we talk about the climate change is the conclusion of this article. Now the fourth article is not there, but it is largely pertains to the data. Data that IMF has recently said that this is the making of Sabka vikas. There is nothing in this article. If you will read it, it will be just a governmental ad kind of thing that how DBT has benefited. But there is this data that by 2022, more than 135 crore Aadhars have been granted. There has been 47 crore beneficiaries under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. And it is a DBT, direct benefit transfer, is called as logistical marvel. So this is the thing that you will withdraw from the data, but there is a very good article related to this, and it is written in Deccan Herald, where you will see that nearly 200 billion of the dollars were saved from 2014 to 2028. sorry, 2022, okay, by the DBT methods. Yet the problem of the corruption is rampant in one way or other. So at one side we are directly transferring the money and we are controlling it, but the other side the money is going from one hand to other hand, because the moment people withdraw it, it ends up in somebody else's hand. So we have to control the corruption, and this will be the discussion of the editorial topic in the coming weeks and probably tomorrow itself, that how Sabka, because it has to be derived from the multiple sources. So this article needs the overall critical appraisal of Sabka DBT policy, and that can be important too. So on that pretext, this is very important article and it will be taken tomorrow. Okay. On that note, yes, I would suggest one another anecdote of the essay topic. So there is this two person, Icarus and Daedalus, and it is derived from the Greek mythology. So Icarus was the father and Daedalus was the son. So Icarus always considered that any human limitations can be crossed. So he decided, and probably even if you will search it on the YouTube, you will find it, or anywhere, the myth of Icarus and Daedalus. So if any human limitations can be crossed, so this was the feeling of the Icarus. So he tried to invent everything, because it is mythology, so some characters and some issue will be fictional too. So once he invented the some toys, wooden toys, which really looked like it is happening, or it is walking, or it is alive. But he was a very jealous person, and he thought that his Nins is more artistic than him, so he killed him, and he was exiled because of this. So he ended up somewhere where the king gave him the place to work, and at that time he did something which completely alienated the king. So king told him to erect a tower that nobody can reach and nobody can descend from. So he erected one tower and he imprisoned the Icarus and Daedalus on that tower, so that he cannot descend from there and nobody can ascend there. But as Icarus was one of the greatest inventor, so and there was candlelight on that tower, so what he did, that he created the wings by falling feathers of the bird and with the help of the molten candle. So he created two human-like wings so that they can support the humans. Okay. So as it happened that he told his son that if we have to escape it from here, then you have to either flow down, you have to flow in between. You cannot flow near the sun or you cannot flow near the sea, because once you will reach the sea, it will dampen your wing, and if we go extremely close to the sun, it will melt your wing. So this was the privilege which was only enjoyed by some people or the gods in the Greek society, flying like gods. So both set off their courses and they flew like gods, and the people who were witnessing them were very bewildered with that humans are flying like God. And in this ecstasy, in this feeling, what Daedalus did, that he felt like God and he flew near to the sun. Subsequently, his wings were molten and his wings were just completely detached. So he fall down from the maximum height. So Icarus was left with a guilt feeling that extremities should not be adhered to, or we have to walk on a path of moderation. So why I told you this story? Any of the topic where the core context is either the environment or the technological limitation, you can start as an introduction from the myth of Icarus and Daedalus, and if you will search it into the YouTube or any of the Googles, So it will give you the better idea then how to approach the essay or what is the story is all about, and you can directly relate, you can directly write it into an introduction, just deciding on the explaining the metaphors in a bit. Like what is the meaning to flying close near to the sun or flying to the sea. So it will give you the idea about that how moderation is very important in the life. So on that moderation, I will finish my class today and we will resume our session tomorrow. Okay, thank you.